you are having a fantastic day thus far. And thank you so much for joining us for another edition of the Welfare Series. We're so excited to have you here today. And we've got Doug here from Dark Horse Stables, who's going to be joining us. We're again having a little bit of technical difficulty. I don't know what it is with Doug and I, but we seem to not do well with the technical difficulties. So he is doing his best to join us here in just a quick minute. But first of all, we can talk a little bit about what we're doing here. So the biggest part is this is really a series to discuss the welfare of the horse. We've had some fantastic speakers on thus far, and it's been really phenomenal to see what different people are taking from this. And at Equine Connection here, we really believe that the welfare of the horse is the utmost of importance. So I guess I should explain who we are as well. My name is Carolyn Charles. I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing here at the Equine Connection, the Academy of Equine Assisted Learning. And we have been doing this business for about, almost 12 years now, I think. And the one thing that we've realized is that we must take care of our horses. The more we work towards anything that we're doing, we have to take proper care of our horses. We are really excited to have Doug here today. Doug is a phenomenal natural horsemanship man. And we actually have him as one of our friends as well. We were able to see Doug in Florida, and he is, I don't even know how to explain it, like the connection that he manages to have with these horses. And it's really about speaking on their terms. And we heard Warwick Schiller talk a few weeks ago about making the right thing easy and the wrong thing hard. I think he said it in the opposite way. And, we had Shelley Whitehouse on here too, talking about the different connections we can have with our horses. And I love watching Doug with the horses because he is so beautiful in how he manages to have these beautiful connections with them as well. And Doug is really fantastic on what's the best way I can say this, in putting things into terms that make sense, I guess is the best way to say it, because Doug is really phenomenal at how he works with his horses. And I have to say I love all horses, but when I met one of his, Carlos is his name, I fell in love. Like, this was just the sweetest horse I had ever met in my entire life. And that was the instant love. Oh, I see him coming up here. He's popping up. I think it might be working. Yay, there he is. All right, there we are. Can you hear us, Doug?
I can hear you.
Perfect.
All right.
So everybody, Doug has joined us. We've done it. And Dorothy, I see you're here from Nova Scotia too. Welcome, welcome. And Tamiko's wishing she was in Southern Arizona. Kind of like I'm wishing I was in Florida right now, Doug.
I'll tell you, it's beautiful today. It's like 80 degrees, nice breeze.
Oh, well, isn't that nice for you?
Yeah.
And here I'm cold, but it's not that bad. It's finally starting to warm up. So I don't know if you heard the first part when we were trying to get, I don't know what it is with you and I in technology, but one day we will make it work instantly for us.
We'll just have to do a live audience or something, do
yeah, we'll just do it without it. Then we'll say, welcome, Doug.
Thank you. Thank you for having me again. I think that looks like we have a better connection than we did last time. And I think a lot has happened. We've got a lot of exciting stuff that we can talk about and probably go over a bit of stuff that we talked about last time that unfortunately all the viewers didn't get to see because we were cutting in and out and kind of moving like this. So it's a lot better to have a better feed now.
So just to start off, tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from, and really what you do at Dark Horse Stables.
Sure. So my name is Doug Walsh. I'm originally from Colorado. Moved out to the East Coast about 12 years ago. Had a 70-acre farm just outside of Pennsylvania. And then I took the plunge to the deep south of Florida. Lived just outside of a town called Wellington, Florida, which is the horse capital of the world pretty much in the wintertime. There's more horses that come here than anywhere else in the world from December through April. And it's different. We talk about welfare of a horse. And you go, where is the perfect place to have a horse? And there's challenges everywhere you go. Colorado is lovely, but there's lack of hay and grass for horses because it's such a dry climate. Pennsylvania was wonderful, had awesome hills that the horses can go up and down. The grass was lush, had great nutrients, but you have deer ticks to battle and Lyme disease and all that stuff. And then down here in Florida, you don't have a whole lot of hills, and the grass has absolutely zero nutritional consistency or anything nutritional in the grass. And the paddocks are a lot smaller. So and then we have summer sores down here, which some horses can't even be in the state because nothing dies down here. And so when you have all those mosquitoes and those flies and all those insects, it can create havoc on horses. So this is probably the most complex place I've ever lived with horses, just because you have to really monitor them and make sure that that they're taken care of.
We had never seen the summer sores until we came to your place, and then you told us about those. We were like, oh, we don't have that in Alberta.
No, you know, and I'll tell you what, you can take a horse that has, you know, we had a horse down here that had really bad summer sores, and a summer sores, for people who don't know, is basically, because I didn't know what it was until I moved down here. It's basically a fly-borne sore. So the fly ingests manure, then touches a spot on a horse, and it actually creates a sore on the horse that then has worms and it gets infected, and then it's just a horrible cycle. So we had a horse down here that we couldn't get it fixed, and so we sent it up north, just up to Maryland, and within a month the horse was completely healed on something that we couldn't. We or vets couldn't get fixed for a long time. So certain horses are more susceptible to it. So what I really work on with what I do is I think it's so important as a horsemanship trainer, is that we truly understand our horses through communication on how they understand, not how we understand, but how they understand.
Yes.
You can have a horse from anywhere in the world, and they understand one language, and it's energy. They're about a 95% energy-based creature. And so when you watch them in herds and watch how they react to each other, we can learn so much. My biggest teacher, I've had a lot of great mentors out there that have taught me how to use the tools and the skills, and then I developed kind of my own way with that. But my best teacher is going to be the horse. Every horse that I come across and work with is truly an individual as we are, and it really, to look at it very simply, it's the psychology of a horse. You know, how do we read their body language? How do we read their facial expressions? They make like 16 or 17 different facial expressions. So how do we read into that and get on the same page with them in order to teach them properly? And that teaching method, in my opinion, really is three things. I look at it as like a tripod. Is that you have to have trust. And if you don't have trust, you're not going to get the proper respect. And to get both of those, especially the trust, takes patience. And so if any leg of that tripod gets kicked out and you don't do it, then the tripod's going to fall over and it's going to be a disaster. So there's a lot of trainers out there that get respect based off of fear. And that's one thing I teach a lot of people is I say, okay, well, how are you teaching your horse? Is it through a trust-based respect, or is it a fear-based respect?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the horse on fear-based respect may give you 55 or 60%, but if you truly build that relationship with them, they'll give you 100%, 150%. You know, I've seen horses they're prey animals by nature, so 24/7 they're constantly looking around that someone's going to kill them.
Yeah.
And so really, so depending on where you live in the world, and if you have domesticated horses, it's our job to teach them that they're going to be safe in our care, and it truly is our job to really care for these animals in the best way that we can, and teach them that they have nothing to be fearful of, just like a herd leader would do that.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, and so when we talk about, I always encourage everybody who wants to understand how they can be there for their horse more. I always say you want to go and watch herd-based dynamic type of videos on YouTube. Watch how herds interact with each other. Make sure that you really understand how they approach each other. When it comes to that energy-based, I can walk up to a horse with a more assertive energy, and they will back off of me.
Yes.
If I walk up to them very kindly, they will allow me to pet them, do everything I need. But we try to teach these horses pressure release in everything that we do. We want them to understand that when we apply pressure, and I say pressure could mean that if I walk towards the front of a horse with energy, with an assertive energy, not like I'm going to attack the horse, but just more assertive energy, that they will back up. And I tell people that if you walk up to somebody, usually if you walk up to them with a demanding presence,
Yeah.
they're going to probably back up or maybe just punch you in the face. It depends on the person, right?
Yeah, depending. We always call it horse walk. It's like going into a herd if you're in a hurry. How's that going to work? You're like marching through like the Terminator, right? Of course they're going to be like, whoa, I don't think I need a part in that today.
Exactly. And when you look at, we talk about horses, whether they're performance horses or they're just trail horses. And what I like to create is I've jumped horses, and I'm a big believer in the dressage based foundation for a horse. It doesn't matter to me if you look at the history of dressage and you look at how it goes back to wars that we fought, and we talked about this a little bit of this analogy before. But could you imagine if one country was going to invade another country on horseback, and they came up to this line, right? And you've got the one country here and the other countries here. And could you imagine if this country got off? They took their horse up and they said, "Hey, is it okay if we bring your horses around all of our horses so they can get to know each other? And can we see the color of your shields and your arrows and your guns just to make sure everything's okay?" No, they didn't have that option.
No.
They had to trust them so much that they could go into battle, and they had to ride with their seat and be able to move the horse through their seat. When we talk about applying pressure, it's the pressure that if we put 1 ounce of pressure on that horse's leg or 2 ounces, that they'll move over away from that pressure, which is not typical of horses, right? So horses, when they typically get attacked, if they get bit by something, they'll lean into that pressure, and then they'll wait for that animal to take another bite, and then they'll try to flee. So a lot of what I teach is getting, and I don't think that this is seen a lot with trainers out there because we're so used to getting on their back so quickly. But what I want to see is the horses have the opportunity to think for themselves.
Yes.
That is the number one most important thing. It's not about, people look at me as a horsemanship trainer, natural horsemanship trainer. They say, "You desensitize horses." And I go, no, I want them to be as sensitive as possible to what I'm asking, but I want them to think on their own to make the right decisions based on me being their leader. And I say that when you go back to herd-based dynamics, if you see 40 or 50 wild Mustangs out there, and we've talked about this before, and they're just grazing, and all of a sudden you see a grizzly bear come walking through. The grizzly bear, a lot of those young horses are going to go, "Oh my God, there's a grizzly bear." They're not going to run away until the herd leader runs away, right? Yes. So that herd leader looks up and he says, "Hey, that's Frank the grizzly bear. How's it going, buddy?" And he goes, "Good. I'm just passing through on my way to go, get some trout." The rest of that herd is going to go right down to start grazing and be relaxed because they're going to do anything that herd leader does. It's an immediate respect based on the trust that they have for them, that they're not going to get them in any trouble. So we tend to have that issue where we like to be their friends instead of their leader.
Yeah.
I try to parallel to children.
I was just going to say, just like parenting.
It's true, right? Like, I don't have kids, but when I look at my friends that have kids, is that, those children that go to dinner and they're the ones that respect their parents and are well behaved, and then there's the ones that go out there and they're running around like crazy kids, and it's because their parents are trying to be their best friend. Yeah. And I look at this as being a son to a mother that, my mom was my parent until I was 18, 19, 20 years old, and then maybe she was 10% my friend, and now that I'm older, I'm like 40% her friend, but she's always going to be parent. She's always and if I'm out of line, doesn't matter what age you are, and that's the type of relationship we have to have with our horses. We have to have a respect based on a hierarchy because that's what they need and that's what they want.
And that trust comes with it too, because you even think with the parenting side with kids, that those boundaries, all of those pieces are what makes kids feel safe as well. Just like with our horses, if we can provide that strong leadership that they can put the trust in, that safety comes along with it too. Like it's such a beautiful parallel because it's so true. You're not there to be their buddy because they're 1,500 pounds sometime, and sometimes your buddy could get you in real trouble if you don't have that respect piece and leadership piece going on with it.
Yeah, and it's very true. And there is a case in life and people who look at some of the stuff that I do when we talk about safety around horses is that once you build that partnership, that true partnership, that horse will do anything for you, and you will do anything for that horse. And then that trust is going to be completely unwavered. I mean, it's like, I have horses that I climb underneath. I sit underneath them. I lay horses down on their side, and then I lay up against their belly, which is the most vulnerable position you can be in, because their feet are right there. They get up on that side. I'll take their feet. I'll wrap them around my body. I'll pick their feet. I'll do all those types of things. And I know that I've built that relationship with them where they will never have anything to be worried about that I do to them or with them.
Yes.
And that's looking at horseback riding in general and the welfare for not only the horse but the person, right? Because what I teach is I teach people to be safe with their horses. Number one, that's why I do what I do. Is that if the owner or the rider isn't safe and they get hurt, who's going to take care of the horse? And so then we want to make sure that the horse is safe for the rider. And then once we know that's capable, then we can really reduce the relationship between the two of them. And what tends to happen is that whether we like it or not, horses have a lot of bad habits that are intentionally or unintentionally given to them. And most of it is unintentional. And so what happens then is we go, oh, we have got this great relationship with our horse, but we're treating him like a friend, and we're in a field with our horse for 5 years, theoretically, we have our horse for 5 or 6 years, and I come into play, and I come in right off the bat as the herd leader, and they go, well, how can you do this so easily? I go, well, you've been with the horse for 5 or 6 years, and if you guys were in a field together, you would be number 2, and your horse is number 1.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, you say to them, hey, I'm going to be number 1. And they go, no, I've been number 1 for like 5 years. And so then you have to overcome that. It's kind of like having a child that you've been his best friend until they're 14, 15 years old. And then all of a sudden you decide you're going to be their parent. They're going to look at you like,
I don't
really?
Yeah.
I've been, you've been my friend forever. So once you establish the groundwork on that, and it's not with being harsh on a horse. I mean, horses, can retain so much, and they're such gifted creatures, and you see how like in your programs how they work with people with disabilities, and you just watch how a horse will interact with different people based on their vibe. They understand what we're thinking way before we even approach them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we got a great question here from Lori. So, hi, sweet Lori. Lori is from New Hampshire. We love Lori. So she says, how do you be a leader for them when you're just beginning to be with them and you don't really know what you're doing? Which is a great question, because we all got to start somewhere, right?
It is a great question. So I say that the number one thing you can do with your horse is teach your horse how to lead properly. I really strongly recommend a rope halter, a good soft rope halter for any horse that you're going to be working with. At our farm here, we have some Grand Prix dressage horses and really nice horses, and they all go out in rope halters and they get worked because it's a training tool. So once the first thing you can do is teach your horse to walk next to you. Their eye should never pass your shoulder. And we talk about transitions in performance horses, and anything that we do, the more we do something, the more it's going to become a habit, right? If we get up and work out every day, it's going to become a habit. That's going to be our routine. So if we let our horse pull us all around and we follow the horse, or we're grazing the horse and the horse is dragging us all over the place, then the horse is in control there. So the thing, Lori, that I would really recommend to you is that when you start leading your horse, walk slower, and then ask them to slow down with you, and then walk a little faster. Get them on the same page as you. And you can do that by either having, a flag that people sell. If you don't have a flag, you can get like a stick with some bags on the end of it, and just start to teach them by applying pressure that, hey, you don't have to walk so fast in front of me. So if they are walking in front of you, then you can ask them to stop, and then you can ask for the lead line. You can just ask them to drop their head a little bit and push on their chest just a little bit. Ask them to back up and give to that pressure. As soon as they give to that pressure, you release. Horses don't learn off of the pressure itself. They learn off the release of the pressure.
Yes.
And the biggest thing that I see that people who even watch horsemanship videos and everything they're not educated on this, is that if you do not release that pressure quick enough, the horse will not learn. When you watch horses in a field and you see the head horse, he'll go up to that other horse and he'll move him right out of the way. If the horse doesn't move from his energy, he might go in really quickly and say, hey, get out of my way.
Yeah.
And he'll just bite him real quick, and then he's out of there before the other horse even knew what was happening.
But it's fast.
But then he can fast, right? But
Yeah.
then he can approach that horse also so kind and loving that they can groom each other, right? They can be facing each other and groom each other. And then, so it's very important to teach your horse how to lead next to you. Another big thing, and I always say get a rope halter with like a 12-foot line. I say a 12-foot line because it's a very safe line. You see a lot of people with horses that are nervous will walk them around right up here under their throat. Now, that's very dangerous to me because what happens is if the horse spooks or freaks out, there's a lot of moving parts on the horse that you're too close to. So I like to then get the horses, teach them how to send. This is a very important part. Sending a horse is so important because, and it's not lunging a horse in an arena. It's asking them, if I have the lead line in my left hand, is I'm going to point where I want to go, and then I'm going to have a flag or something that I can ask them to move the energy from their hind and get them to walk around me. And then I'm going to step in front of their drive line. So as they're coming towards me, I'm going to move to the left and ask them to cross over and do a figure eight. Getting those types of things done will get the horses more in tune with you. And the whole goal with what we're trying to do is getting horses in tune with what we do. And a horse that's focused on us solely will not be afraid of other things because they're going to be looking at us and be for direction.
And the one thing I wanted to comment on with that is consistency. I see a lot of people all the time that they've been working with their horses and the horse won't stop for them or something else. And then they'll turn around and they pet the horse. It's the first thing that they do. And I always think, you are correcting a horse, but then you're turning around and petting at the same time. What's the actual consistent piece that they're putting out there? And does that add to the welfare piece of it too? Is that consistency part?
Yeah, that's a great question because, we try to ask us as individuals, we try to ask so much of our horses so quickly, and horses will tell us how quickly they learn. And so if we have to correct a horse or we want to teach them something, it's very important if they do something right to stop immediately, allow them to absorb that, and then love all over them. Right now, the other thing I like to say is that a lot of people, you see them pat their horses. Oh, good job! They pat their horses, right?
Yeah.
Do you ever see another horse in the field just doing this to their other horse, like taking their muzzle and just banging it on the horse?
Yeah, we're gonna be whack.
So they can feel a fly land on the rear end. They're pretty sensitive creatures, right? I think you were telling me a few years ago, they can hear a heartbeat up to like a couple hundred yards away. It's unbelievable. So giving them praise through rub, I always like to try to rub their wither area, up their neck, But yeah, you definitely want, if you're doing a corrective action, you want to do it subtly, but then just kind of let the horse take a second to understand, and where we always make the mistake is we expect the horse to do something so quickly at first, and we need to give them time to think about it and make the right decision. Remember, they're searching for the right answer in most cases. They're searching for it. They want to please us. They don't want to do anything horrible. But sometimes we ask them a question and they may give us a different answer. And so we have to acknowledge that is not a thing that we have to correct as like you're a bad horse from this aspect. We just have to say, okay, you've acknowledged that this is not the right answer I'm looking for. So how can we go right back, get your feet moving? Because when their feet are moving, their mind starts to get engaged.
Yes.
And which is very important with everything that we do. And going back to Lori's question, is that the more we walk them around and we get them to change directions, so they walk forward, then we ask them to back up, then we want to move into their space and have them move away from us. The more that we keep them in tune to following us, and it really becomes a dance. And I'm going to be, putting videos. I'm going to do a video series of all different components so people can go on and watch that have questions like this and kind of see how we do this. But yeah, it's so I would really hold off on corrective action than more of what is the horse telling us? Are they giving us the right answer? And if not, can we just go right back and ask for that right answer? And even if they give us a portion of our right answer, then we want to appraise them and say, hey, that's a great job, because they're going to build off of those blocks. They'll learn more and more each day.
Well, and they have stacked memories just like us. So when we can build on those stacked memories and the positive side of it, which is essentially what we do with people in equine assisted learning too, that's helping them to understand the right things rather than like the fear base, like you were saying, because that's not going to get you nearly as far on any connection level as that positive reinforcement piece does.
Yeah, and it's just like, you know, and when you look at it is like people, is that, you know, a lot of people watching today probably have jobs that they work for somebody. And do you want to work for a boss, or do you want to work for a leader, right? There's a big difference between a boss and a leader. You know, that boss may tell you what to do, may kind of always be on your case and never tell you you're doing good enough. And the leader, you want to, you want to follow a leader, right?
Yes.
A great leader is someone you want to follow. You trust them. You're excited to be behind them. And, you know, I do a lot of work with horses with no lines on in big spaces, and they want to be around me. It's not, it's because I've treated them well enough and I'm kind enough to them, and they respect me where they want to follow where I go. And so we don't want to be a dictator in our horse training. And there's a lot of people, because when you just get on a horse and always be careful. I always give a piece of advice that if you get a trainer involved, be very careful that your trainer doesn't dictate to your horse what they need to do and not do. Because if we ask the questions the right way, they'll do more than we could have ever imagined. It's amazing what these creatures are capable of doing if we ask them the right way, without spurs, without whips, without anything. If we just teach them to be light, instead of saying, well, my horse is pulley, well, my horse doesn't this. Well, if we fix all that by teaching them to give to pressure, wherever it is on their horse. If I touch the top of his pole, he should just very lightly, he should drop his head. If I go to put his, and Lori, this may help you out too, is when you go to put the halter on, start to just bend your horse's neck in to you and drop their head a little bit. And it's all a giving thing. So you're not just going to pull it around. You're just going to ask gently. If they give you release. And every horse that I go to put a halter on, when I walk up to their left side or right side, it doesn't matter. Left side, they dip their head and put their head down and wait for the halter to go over their nose, or their bridle to go in their mouth.
And Lori, that's especially nice for short people like you and me. When they bring their heads down, that's super helpful to us. So Lori, I would totally do that one.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, we have an awesome young rider here. She's in the dressage world. She's the #1 in the nation right now for juniors. She's got an 18-hand horse, and she's 13 years old. And you know, and she was getting a step stool to get the bridle on the horse. And I said, hey, let's work on this. And so now she walks up, she just gets next to the horse. She has the bridle. The horse understands that it drops its head, opens his mouth, puts the bridle in, and she can do it, you know, from whatever height. We set that height of him to where she is comfortable. And they're more than able to do that. And like you said, with their stacked memories, is they can do that. You know, we can teach them something, put them out in a field for 10 years, bring them back in, and unless it's a muscle issue, you know, they can do whatever we've asked them to do. They'll retain that. So
yes. Do you have, I remember you telling me a story that had to do with the welfare of the horse, in that how we change the way we communicate with them, and it really does benefit the horse that way. And I wish I could remember to like help you out at all here, but but I don't. So, but you had told me a story once of how it really did change the horse's life as well as the humans, just from figuring out that better way to communicate. Do you have any idea which one I'm talking about?
Yeah, well, you know, okay. I mean, I'll just kind of go into this, is that, you know, humans are 65% energy-based creatures. Unfortunately, because we have a mouth and we have ears and we have hands, and we tend to push that down. So what we try to do when we communicate with the horses, we try to put our influences on them. And it's so important for us to really hone into our energy, really get our energy down and say, okay, what does the horse need? How is my horse going to educate me? Because your horse is your best teacher. They will tell you exactly what they need. And a lot of people they can walk into their barn and they can go, oh, my horse isn't feeling good because his head is down and maybe he hasn't eaten breakfast. But there's signs that we can look for every day when our horse is feeling good, that we can say this is what they need from us. You know, I like to say that when I am with my horse, I look at it as like they're my dance partner. They're my I don't do a lot of talking when I work with horses. I talk a lot to people, but when it comes to horses, I just want to I want to give them every ounce of energy that they deserve. And by doing that, and by listening and watching the smallest steps, I've loaded hundreds and hundreds of horses onto trailers that had trailer loading issues, were scared of it, had all types of issues. And when I work with these horses, if they take a quarter of a step, I'll ask my clients, "Did you see that?" And they'll go, "No, what?" I go, They just gave me a little bit, and that little bit, it's like building the Great Wall of China, right? It just wasn't done. These pyramids weren't just done. It was one brick at a time. And if you can look at your relationship with your horse and go, "I'm going to not miss any steps," because a big part of foundation was left out when we start training horses. Most of what I'm talking about today isn't talked about in 4-H, isn't talked about in Western Airs. I don't know what the equivalent is in Canada, but any of the youth programs, it's not talked about that. So, you really have to spend that time on the ground, really understand. And we tended to do it more when we look at us as young boys or young girls when we went to camp and rode with horses, right? We spent all day with the horses. Like, I hear girls, because those are mostly my clients are ladies, and they're like, "Oh, I remember when I was a kid and we just rode with bareback with a halter, and it was just amazing, and we spent so much time with our animals." And that's how you build a connection, by spending time with your animals. So it is truly, the foundation is essential. I see that as the question. It is true. And it's we won't build a skyscraper, right? Or a house.
Yeah.
Would you want your house built with a crappy foundation? No.
Not ideally.
No, but yet we're so eager to get on these horses and tell them this is what we're going to do. Then all of a sudden, the foundation's not there, and the horse loses its mind because they're a fear-based creature. So we have to teach them to not have their brain fall out of their head and go into flight mode, because when they go into flight mode, it's like a person having a panic attack.
Yes.
If you've ever been around someone who's had a panic attack, they're not there, right?
Nope.
And when a horse goes into flight mode, the brain is shut off. Their brain is in survival mode, which is typically run or get the heck out of there.
Yeah.
So it's very important to, and this goes back to Lori's next question: how do you give your energy? It depends on the horse. If I can get off of a horse that's a very sensitive horse, that I could go boo, and the horse would jump across the round pen.
Yeah.
Right. So what I have to do is I have to read that horse very quickly and go, is this a very sensitive horse? If they're a very sensitive horse, I bring my energy way down. If they're a horse that needs me to bring the energy up, I have to bring the energy up. So really, it really depends on your horse and how you can read them. And I personally like working with horses with lots of energy, because some of the ones that are really dull, I burn a lot more calories in the day trying to get them to move and do the things that they need to do. But once they understand that, because horses are lazy by nature, right? They don't.
You don't want to expunge it if they don't have to.
No, wild Mustangs, they move 20 to 25 miles a day, and you're not going to see them going, "Okay, everybody, we're going to start off this at a good trot, and then we're going to do 3 miles at a canter, and then we're going to come back down to a trot, and then back to the canter." No, they're just going to walk along because they need to conserve energy. So
see, I must be part horse, because that feels unnatural to me to do that kind of thing.
I tell you, you and me both. I guess that's why people go to this CrossFit and like to get killed to death when they work out. So
exactly. We had another great question here too. How do you deal with a young horse that doesn't want her ears touched?
Oh, it's a great question, because it's not just young horses. And when they're young, it's actually easier to do this. So what I typically would do is start to rub them up and down their mane and just get them used to being touched in general. I don't know if they're sensitive skin-wise everywhere else, if it's just their ears, but you just want to work slowly over, and it may take you a week or 2 weeks, or it may take you a month. Horses learn at their pace. I've had horses that in 30 days, I can do magical things with them, and people go, "Oh my God." And I go, well, the horse was able to learn that quickly. And then I've had horses that take me a year to get the same type of results, and it's based on how that horse learns. So once you understand your horse's ability to learn, and it doesn't mean a horse is smart or dumb. Like, I've got some really smart horses that are really slow learners. Mm-hmm. And then I've got some horses that aren't as smart that are very quick at picking things up, and vice versa. But if you have, if you rub your hand up their mane and just start to get closer to the ears, just start to rub the ears. But what I would do is I'd also teach them, and I always say this, if they have a rope halter on, grab the bottom of the rope halter, kind of right underneath where the knot is on the rope, and just put your hand on top of their pole in like a little claw like this, and just hold the weight of a coffee cup filled with coffee on the rope down below the chin, and then put your hand on top of the pole and just wait right there until they drop their head. And the minute they drop their head, release. Now,
Yes.
you're going to keep doing that till it gets really, really soft. If she won't even let you, if your young horse won't even let you get up there, then what you need to do is just start working your way up towards the ears and just get closer and closer. And she's just probably had some bad experience. You know, I get a lot of horses that were ear twitched and had a lot of issues. And that just be kind to your horse and take it slow, and you will get very far with them. And I'm not saying it should take you 3 years to get the ears touched. You should be able to do that on pretty much any horse within a few days, as long as you're not. And approach, if your horse is a very sensitive horse, and I'm guessing this horse is sensitive, rub your hand up slowly. And then back. And the minute if you get closer than you've ever gotten, then back off. Remember, because even if you're touching the horse, and if the ear is here, and I'm going towards the ear, and I get to here, and she lets me, then I'm going to back off, because me backing off is insinuating that energy, she's being, okay, you didn't go too far. Every horse has a ceiling, and this is what we have to figure out with our own individual horses, is that they have a ceiling, and that's their threshold. And some of them, it may be like 2 inches off the ground, and some of them may be a little higher. But what we don't want to do is we don't want to keep bumping that ceiling, because they're never going to learn. We want to constantly be this far under the ceiling as we raise it. And we constantly go up, and to the point where their ceiling's so high that we'll never, ever touch it. So as you work with that horse's ears, just make sure you keep that in the back of your mind, that you stay within the threshold of her ability, and then she'll give you more when you work on her.
And I think with the right intention too, because if you're running your hand up the neck and you're thinking, oh crap, they're going to go any second. Oh, well, she's going to freak out. Yeah, they probably will freak out the second you get up there and you're thinking that. Whereas, because your heart rate's already starting to go up as that piece goes, and then it's not going to help the situation. So you have to go in with the right, okay, we're only going to go to here this time, and it's going to be all okay. Otherwise, they're going to feel it off of you immediately too.
Yeah, and I think what you were talking about, the energy thing too, is that the horses feed off our energy so much that if you're having bad energy, and then I see Lori's question about what is energy. If you're having if you're having a really tough day at work or whatever, like your kid's being a brat, whatever. Energy is the force field around you, is what you admit to other beings. If you're not having a good day and you walk out, people can say, "Oh, are you okay? Are you having a rough day?" They can feel your energy. They can see it on your face. They can see how your body, your mannerisms, everything. They did a study with horses, and they actually took pictures, just pictures that of individuals smiling versus mean faces. And the horse was able to pick up on the difference and acted differently based on a picture.
Cool.
Okay, so if you are having a bad day and you can't put your yoga and your mindfulness together and take some deep breaths and really calm your energy and get in a happy place, it's not the day to be around your horse, because they pick up. They are wired to pick up on anything that's bad that may hurt them. Yes.
This is a good one too that Tamiko put in. She has a horse that masks their anxiety and stress, but well into a great day, I'm guessing, may explode into flight. No warning, no ceiling, or no warning to ceiling. So that's kind of interesting too, because then you'd have to pull back and start from an even more basic level, I would think.
Yeah, and so think about it this way, and I love questions like this, because I've worked a lot of horses where people come to me and they go, "Hey, the horse is really good, but like once a month it just blows up at it for no reason. It loses itself." And I use an analogy of a trainer that I saw one time, and he had said that a girl had come to him, and they lived in an area where there was lots of room to roam and there was lots of wild rabbits. And she said, I've got this horse, and, take him out. And, a rabbit jumps out in front of us. And the first rabbit he's fine with. And the second one he's okay with. And go down the line, and the 12th rabbit, he's fine with 11 rabbits. And that 12th rabbit, the horse just lost his mind.
Why is there 12?
Yeah. And the trainer just politely looked at her and said, "Well, your horse has an 11 rabbit limit." And when you think about that, is that we might not think, because our horse may mask the anxiety and stress like you're talking about, but as the things get harder, whether it's work, whether you're a dressage rider or you're in a performance discipline, Western or English, whatever it may be, or you're on the trail, is that horse may see something and go, ooh, I'm not okay with that. Or maybe work you're asking him to do. I'm asking you to do a half pass, or I'm asking you to back up. You're putting stress on them. And then the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and the next thing, and all of a sudden you have a horse that explodes. And so think of it as the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's what we really have to look at. And so what I like to do, so in a horse like that, because I had a horse that came to me and they said, yeah, this horse only does this once a month. That's all he does it. Well, I took the horse into the round pen, and I was able to make that horse explode whenever I wanted it to immediately. And if I can figure out how to make that happen, then I can fix it, right? If we know, because all this stuff is a symptom of a different problem. It's all a symptom. So I see we got another question here from Michelle.
Yes, this is a good one too. Are Mustangs like children? My once wild 3-year-old is a saint for others when handling, but open and bad boy with me. Not mean, just kind of more of an attitude like the Terrible 2 kid. He does back off when asked though, and he's just sillier around me. Is this typical? That's a great question.
That's a great question. And so you got to go back to the fact that a horse has a mentality of about a 5-year-old child that weighs, 1,500 pounds. So, and especially, think about that. And so I want them to be safe, right? And so in that question saying that he's fine with other people, but it's just me. Well, that means that your relationship is erring more on the percentage of friend than leader. And what we tend to find ourselves doing is, I'm fine if people want to give treats to their horses and give love to their horses, but it has to be, first off, if you have a horse that I call a cookie monster, which is one that if you give treats to and every time you go by, it wants to suck your hand off like it's a vacuum cleaner or goes right to your pockets. That's a horse that doesn't need treats, and it's going to do harm, because the horse is going to be any type of mouthy horses. You don't want to give them treats. When we talk about respect with a horse, is that we want to have those lines in the sand. I always refer back to the movie Dirty Dancing, when Patrick Swayze said, this is your dance space and this is my dance space, and there's that difference. And when we talk about ourselves, is that we all have a bubble around us. That bubble for most people is about 2 feet. If you get within that bubble, it makes people feel really uncomfortable. Well, we want to keep that same thing with our horses. Is that the one key I can tell you with your horse, with your Mustang or any horse, is that you have to create a boundary, and your horse cannot come in your boundary ever unless you ask him to come in your boundary. You can go into their boundary whenever you want, and as long as they're okay with it. I've seen a lot of horses that people walk them around like this, and the horse is going bananas, and I walk up to him and I say, "Can I see your horse?" And they said yes, and the horse is trying to take off, and I literally give 3 feet on the lead line, and the horse stands there like a champ. He has a boundary also. Now, the difference with us as a leader, though, just like a herd leader can walk up to any horse and do whatever he wants to that horse, and they're going to stand there and let him do it because he respects them. So when I say that we can go into their space, they can't come into ours unless invited. And all of us probably have those creepy horses, like when I say creepers, they're like, we're having a conversation, the horse is over there, and the next thing we know, that 1,500-pound animal comes scooting over, we didn't even hear them, and they're breathing in our ear, right? And we go, oh, that's so lovely. And then when we do all this with them right here, then they start to go, it's okay to be right there. So the next thing they know, they're going to start nudging us, and they're going to start pushing us around, and we go, oh, that's so cute that they're doing that. Well, what happens in a herd when you watch another horse go up to the other horse and nudge them like this? He's saying, please get out of my way. I don't want you here right now. So anytime a horse comes up and nudges you and does those types of things, they're acting as the dominant, and we want to make sure that we always have that parent mentality, that no matter how great of a partnership we have, we're still going to be the leader over being a friend.
And even in equine assisted learning, I mean, like a lot of what we do with working on the ground with people is our horses are speaking, but they speak with their heads, right? So we always want to give them that extra little bit of leeway to do that. But it's our job as facilitators to make sure that we're keeping up these respectful boundaries, because that's what keeps the program safe as well. It makes the horse feel safe, it makes our clients feel safe, and it makes us feel safe, all in that same situation, which I think is part of the reason why the horses love their jobs so much here, is because they know those boundaries, but they still get talk, they still get to do their pieces and teach, right? And it's a phenomenal piece that works reciprocally between us and the horses and the clients. It's beautiful.
But yeah, and having the ability to be part of when you were down here, to be part of that program, the equine assisted learning, is that, seeing, you met one of my horses, Carlos, a horse that respects space. And when I first told you about him, I said, I got a 17.3 hand paint. And you said, oh my God, that's probably too big for the program. But then when we brought him out and you saw how he respects people's space and how he is so in tune, and watching, I remember we had an example of a lady that was down here, and, she had a horse that I had that was could be a little pushy to people, and was pushing this lady around, and the lady started crying, and we said, what's going on? And she said, I'm just so sick. I've been pushed around my whole life. And as soon as she did that, the Ocala backed up 2 steps and gave her space. And that's what's so amazing about these creatures, is that they can read everything that we are. They can read us better than other people can read us, because they're going to feed off of our energy. And that's why they work so well with people that are nervous or have disabilities, and even children, right? Horses are so much different with children, because children don't have an agenda. People with disabilities don't have an agenda. They just want to be with the horse, and they want to get on the same page. So
we have one other question, but I wanted to tell you too, I mentioned Carlos right at the beginning. I was like, he's this horse that I fell in love with. And it's Carlos. I love him.
Carlos.
Anyway, I have a mare that attempts to bite me when I get to cinch up the saddle. Otherwise, she never gets this aggressive. What's happening in our communication here? Oh, good question.
So what's happening in our communication here? Well, depending on, this is a big mistake that people make when they start horses. They cinch them up too quickly. And so if the horse's stomach isn't upset, they don't have ulcers, or they're not sensitive in their stomach, because I have a horse like that right now that I've been working on with several months on this. And a lot of horses, when they're started, they're cinched up too quickly and too tight. And so then it becomes a trigger for them, and they try to bite you. So what I try to do is I try to put the saddle on, and if it's a Western saddle or an English saddle, it doesn't really matter. But just put it, and you'll probably see that it doesn't matter. As soon as you get ready to bring that girth over the other side, they're going to get ready to start to get grumpy and pin their ears. So what I like to do is if it's a Western horse, I'll take the line. I'll just put it on very, very gently. I'll slide my girth up and just get it where it's just barely touching the horse. Then let him hang out for a minute, and then I'll get him occupied on something else. Just start petting him, just start rubbing all over him, and then I'll just ask for one more little cinch. It's going to take time, but most horses that have that issue because it was done too tight too quickly, and they just are very sensitive to that. So if you go down that road, you can always just take it slow. And what helped with one of my horses that broke that is that I started tying him to the side of the trailer, and I'd throw a hay bag up there for him, and so he could munch off that, because I wanted to see if he was in pain or if it was really something that was just a trigger for him. And he's eating the hay, and I just did the first one, did the second one, did the third one. He didn't flinch at all. Didn't even try to bite me. Didn't try to do anything. So that was just a good little test. But the more that they get comfortable with the fact that you're not, it's just kind of like, would you like me to put your belt on and just grab it and just tighten this? You're going to go, oh my God. So just take it slow with them. Do one notch at a time. And with that one notch, even if it's just barely touching them, then I think that would help. And and if you have more questions after this, you're always welcome to message me on Facebook as well.
Thank you so much for all of your questions, everybody, because this has been a fantastic one that I have really, really enjoyed. Well, it's always a pleasure to see you, Doug.
Well, and it's wonderful to see you, and I hope to see you here coming up in August, I think, up in Canada, if I can get up there. It's going to be exciting. And anytime I can help on the show, I'd love to. My goal in all of this is really to help educate people how they can have the best relationship with their horse in the right ways, because you will get so much more out of your horse. And like I said, every time you go out there, if you look at your horse as your dance partner, whether you're on the ground or they're on their back, it's a very magical experience that we get to have, to be able to ride these horses. And if you take the time to teach them the right way, there's nothing that they can't do and won't do, because they love to do it with you. It's just all in how we ask the question.
Totally. And that goes perfectly with the welfare of the horse, because if they are in those beautiful places wanting to work with you, like you said, there's nothing that you can't do with them, because they're wanting to be there and they're happy to do it. And it's taking care of them and their needs as well.
Yes, exactly.
I love it. We got to, I tuned in too late. Yes, there is a replay, Mary Jean. So don't worry about that. You can absolutely hit replay afterwards and it'll still be on there for you.
You know, and there was one question I thought there was on there that we missed from somebody. I wasn't sure. I just want to make sure we got them all. I thought there was one question.
Quite possibly. I'm getting lots of thank yous through.
And it was someone I couldn't pronounce her name, so it wasn't. I just glanced at it really quickly, but it was a long question.
Oh, this one I missed. How do you teach a horse to let you administer a needle injection?
Okay. Yeah, that wasn't a question, but that's a good one on this one. So I try to do, every time I give my horse any oral things, whether it's dewormer or injections, I try to do it without a bridle on or without a halter on, not a bridle, without a halter on, and just get them to be really comfortable in their environment. I kind of do, when I do an injection, I'll put a halter on, but same thing. Typically, when you give either IM or an IV, you want their neck to be bent in towards you a little bit, so you can find the vein, or you can find that triangular spot to give them that IM shot. I typically will take, I'll love all over that area. So wherever you're going to work on them, they have to be used to you touching them in that area like it's no big deal. It's kind of like trailer loading. You can't just put a horse on a trailer once a year and expect them to be good at it. So the more that you are rubbing your horse and you're being around your horse, the easier it's going to be. And then if you have a horse that's really nervous with needles, then I would typically take the syringe, take the needle, and get them used to just having it touch them from the side of it and getting relaxed. But we have to go back to the fundamentals still, which is getting them to give their head pressure, bend their neck, and be able to be flexible. And the one thing I do want to say is that a lot of horses hold a tremendous amount of lactic acid in their neck. Their neck has over 100 muscles in it. It's responsible for 6% of their entire mass of their body. And if we look at their neck, it's very similar to our lower back, in a sense that it does. I mean, their neck is everything to them. It feeds everything to the rest of the body. And it's so important that we have that neck loose and we actually make sure the muscles are soft and the horse can bend both directions. Once you get that and you can touch your horse all over, that injection should be a lot easier to do. Yep.
And I think it might have been Elizabeth's comment that I put up. Is this it? That she's been working with her horses on not saying anything with my horses and using your heart to move it when the... Oh, yeah. That might have been it there, which is beautiful, because I think when you lead from that piece, it's not like you're forcing them to do something, right?
It's so, it's so true. Like, it's when you're in that in sync with your horse, they're going to understand when you walk. Like, I go out to get one of my horses and he can be grazing with all the other horses. And I go out there, and as soon as he looks up at me, he runs to me and will stop right in front of me, 3 feet in front of me at that boundary. And I don't have to say a word to him. And that's, and that's when you really know you're connected. So.
Yes. And Erica says, thank you. Love your style. Really got slow down. Watch my energy, my approach. Listen, watch them closely and be the leader, not his or her best friend. Thanks. Which is beautiful. Good summary, Erica.
Yeah. No, it's true. And really make sure that you take some time if you have any questions to watch. I mean, you can message me, but really watch some like how herds react or how herds act with each other on like YouTube, because the horses are going to be our best teachers. The people that train us just give us tools, hopefully the correct tools to use when educating our horse. But realistically, our horse is going to be our best teacher. So
true. And the most challenging horse always seems to be the best of all the teachers.
Yeah. Oh my God. My most challenging horses have been the biggest reward at the end, because they have taught me. Yeah, because as soon as we think if I die and I know like this much of horses, it's going to be amazing, because, there's so much to learn from them. And the ones that challenge you more, I have a really big toolbox now. And every time I have a challenging horse, I get to add a tool to that. And remember that just because one thing works with one horse doesn't mean it's going to work with another horse in the same way. They're all the same tools, but it's how we apply those tools with the energy and the learning ability of that horse. That's what's going to make you successful with the horses you work with.
100%.
when you teach a horse the right way, then it comes very naturally, and you get to, and it becomes your partner, and it's wonderful. So we'll have some fun when I'm up there seeing you. We'll work on
Perfect.
stuff. So.
I love it.
Anyway, yeah,
Thank you
great.
so much for joining us, Doug. It's been such
Yeah.
a pleasure, and we will, we'll see you again on Facebook, I'm sure.
Yes, thank you everybody so much. And any questions, let me know. And I hope you have a great experience with your horses. And just remember, patience is key.
Yes. Thanks again, Doug. Bye, everybody.
See you, everybody.